Today we're going to take a look at the second part, From Friends to Foes, how the United States and France kind of had a strained relationship throughout the 1790s. And today we're going to focus on the administration of John Adams. Now, a little backstory for you. Remember, John Adams is elected in 1796, gets 3 more electoral votes than his political opponent, Thomas Jefferson, and he kind of gets screwed in the beginning because he's got this guy who has a completely political philosophy who is now his VP. They'll fix that later with the 12th Amendment. And what ends up happening is from the moment he takes office, he has all these foreign crises to deal with. The United States and France are extremely close to war. Jay's treaty with England is extremely weak. And John Adams, the short, not too attractive guy, has to deal with this kind of coming out of the shadow of Mr. Jorge Washington. Now, if you're wondering, why is France angry? Well, there's a couple of reasons why France is angry. One is they feel the United States has kind of violated the Franco-American Treaty of 1778. They're like, damn dog, we were homies after the Battle of Saratoga, and when we had our little situation in Europe, you didn't come to our aid. You didn't help us, protect the French West Indies. You didn't honor your treaty, your commitment, because you had that neutrality proclamation. They're also kind of angry at us for Jay's treaty, even though it was a relatively weak and very unpopular treaty. They thought, the United States is cozying up with their rival, England. So all of this stuff is causing tension, and this had been going on for a while. And remember, there is impressment taking place. Throughout the 1790s, both England and France are harassing American shipping and violating our neutrality at sea. And this is a major problem. Washington tried to deal with it. He did keep us out of war, which was a big accomplishment for our young nation. And now Adams has to try to do the same thing. And he does so when he decides in 1796, 1797 that he wants to avoid a big situation with France, and he wants to avoid a war, so he's going to send some representatives over to France to negotiate a peace agreement. And these 3 representatives, one of them is John Marshall, who later on will become a Supreme Court Chief Justice, a very important guy, so keep in mind John Marshall. And they get to France in 1797, arrive in Paris, and while they're there, they're approached by 3 French representatives, and they're only known as X, Y, and Z because they refuse to give their names. And they approach the U.S. peace delegation, X, Y, and Z, and they demand a bribe. They want $250,000 just to talk to the French Foreign Minister, Talleyrand. Pay me if you want to talk. And the United States delegates, John Marshall included, are like blown away. You want us to pay just to have a conversation? And this event becomes known as the XYZ Affair.
X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z.
And the United States refuses the demands, and this XYZ affair, this assault on our honor as a young nation, leads to an undeclared naval war known as the Quasi War. Rewind for a minute. What? In fact, John Adams basically said to Congress in June 1798, I will never, ever, ever send another minister to France without assurances that he will be received, respected, and honored as the representative of a great, a free, powerful, and independent nation. In fact, one of the popular sayings at the time, especially amongst Federalists, was millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute. We're not going to pay. We're not going to bow down. We're not going to get on our hands and knees and beg for France not to attack us. And there was a huge public sentiment for war, especially amongst Federalists, but there's huge pressure on Adams to do something about this XYZ affair. In fact, immediately following it, you have this undeclared war. In fact, not only do you have this undeclared war, but you have the Department of Navy is created, and our naval ships are increased. The U.S. Marine Corps is reestablished. It had been established in 1775, and it's reformed. And the military is called up. And there's all this kind of, the drums of war are beating. And for about 2.5 years, you have an official war, an unofficial war called the Quasi War. Where the United States over there on the left and the French are battling it out in the ocean, largely in the Caribbean, but throughout the Atlantic as well. The United States during the Quasi War is going to capture like 80 French vessels. Several hundred American ships are going to be lost to France. And this Quasi War is going on. And Adams is in a tough spot because, American honor has been damaged. And Adams, he's a Federalist, and a lot of his partners, his buddies, are wanting to go to war, but he wants to avoid a bigger war. He feels, rightly so, that we're not really prepared for a bigger war, and it's in the best interest of the United States to try to avoid one, just like Washington had. And so he gets assurances from Talleyrand, and at this point, a guy by the name of Napoleon's in charge of France, that if he sends over some new reps, they're going to be treated with respect, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. And so Adams sends over these individuals to France to try to kind of calm the situation down, and they come up with an agreement called the Convention of 1800, and it's a big old celebration.
Come on now. Celebration. Let's all celebrate and have a good time.
And the Convention of 1800 is important because it officially ends the Franco-American alliance. That 22-year-old kind of agreement of convenience, or rather inconvenience, is dissolved. The United States is no longer bound by France, and Napoleon wants to avoid a war with the U.S. as well. He's fighting everyone in Europe. And the Quasi-War is done. Now back to our boy John Adams. He's an interesting guy. Doesn't get a lot of credit. And we got to give him some credit here. So shout out to John Adams because he kept us out of a war we were unprepared for. While there was a lot of popular support for it, John Adams took some political hits by being cautious and eventually, through negotiations, preventing the Quasi-War from going all-out war. That's going to do it for today. Check out the other videos, subscribe, like some videos, tell a friend, and watch the movie The Departed. Every student I see, I ask, have you seen The Departed? And they're like, what? Watch the dang thing. But only after you watch like 5 or more videos and hit like. Peace.